Hello and welcome to Think, Create, Initiate podcast, hosted by Grace and Charlotte. This podcast will focus on key tools, techniques, insights to help you start and grow a profitable business while still in a job or in small pockets of time. We have a strong desire to help as many female entrepreneurs as possible to create a business from a passion that is unique to them, following our proven 4-part formula for success. So whether you're listening on the go or sitting back and relaxing, make sure you enjoy and implement any takeaways you learn today. Hello, we are here so very, very excited because I have an amazing guest. We have Samia Bano on today, who is a happiness expert. Yes, you heard me correct, happiness expert. So you know this is going to be an amazing conversation. I think as entrepreneurs, this is something we really need to be looking more deep in ourselves, go transmute into our business, into our relationships, into the world. And we are going to be delving upon the topic of how love can change the world. So we have really lots of great things to unpack. We have the best person with us to help us walk us through this. And I think this is going to be an amazing conversation and one you'll want to go back to again and again. So without further ado, let me welcome Samia to the Think, Create, Initiate podcast. Thank you so much. Please share who you are and what you do.
Hi Charlotte. Hi to everyone who's listening. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you all. Okay, so my name is Samia and I am a happiness expert, and basically what I am amazing at is helping people take control of how they think, feel, and act so that you can do what you love and create big change and do it with fun and ease.
Yes, we love the tagline, and that's part of your tagline, fun and ease, and something myself and Grace we always want to implement, because you're not swapping another job for job. This is supposed to be fun. The more fun we have in and the more pleasure, and we've talked about this on this podcast, is the more you thrive in creativity in this, if that's a word, comes out as well. So I think it is just so important, and we get to change the paradigms of how we're doing things as well. So we get to, really create the environments we want to thrive in. So before we go into this beautiful topic, we talk about how love can change the world. Share with us a bit about, because I'm always curious for our listeners to know who are at different points of our journey, your journey in entrepreneurship as well has started where you are and what your mission is at the moment.
Yes. So, for me, I have had a very unusual experience. Unusual experience in the sense that growing up, I'm from India and Pakistan, and for the first about 18 years of my life, that's where I was living, and I had no ambition at all of doing any kind of work, and I didn't even really think it was possible for me. I was, living a fairly traditional Indian Pakistani lifestyle, and my expectation was that my dad, my brother, eventually a husband, would just always be there to take care of me and things, and I'd be focused on life at home. But around 18 years old is when I moved to America. I started going to college in America, and it just changed my life in so many amazing ways. Was that I started to really become open to the idea of creating a career for myself and doing something with my life beyond, just taking care of things at home and in the context of my family. And I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse. And when I started to see dreams about how I could help myself and help other people, like that was what came to me, that, first of all, I have to figure out how to help myself heal from this trauma. And then whatever I learn, I want to share that with other people and help them heal, because I literally spent like decades suffering because of that trauma. And I was like, I don't want to suffer. I don't want anyone else to. Really the mission that drove me to, make all my choices as I proceeded through college, and I was thinking about a career and so forth. And actually, I was very confused about how I was going to live this mission out in my life, because I had so many different ideas of how I could do it, until I was my very last quarter, about to graduate from college, and I actually took this amazing class. It turned out to be sort of like a leadership development class, and they had us do like an amazing series of exercises and build a portfolio of our visions, goals, and dreams. And they even had us create a blueprint of an organization that we may want to one day establish. We may want to one day establish, and what that organization would look like and what kind of work it would do, and etc. And we wrote. They taught us how to write a very detailed plan that you could actually. The goal was, you can submit this and to various grant foundations and so forth, and actually get seed money to start your organization. And so that was like really for me the starting point of getting organized in my head and getting clear about not only the fact that I wanted to do something to help people, especially survivors, but how I wanted to do that. And that the fact that I didn't want to just go get a job to do that and work at someone else's company or organization, but that I wanted to actually start my own. And basically, I had created this plan. So when I was exiting college, didn't happen right away, because I had just graduated with a psychology degree. I had never learned anything about business, and so that took me a while to figure out like a business model that could realistically work for me, not just from my imagination, but in the moment, facing the realities of my current resources and current skills and so on and so forth. And I was so lucky that I found amazing mentors along the way. And my very, I would say, one of the most impactful mentors that I've had was my happy, the one who I initially trained with. I interned with her, and I saw in what she was doing a business model that I was like, wow, this is a business model that I can actually implement right now and get going with myself. And that was basically the model of, just starting out as a coach. My bigger vision was and is to actually establish a physical university, brick and mortar and everything. And so we were working towards that. And in the meantime, we were building, the kind of educational environment and offering the kind of education that I want to offer in that in-person university. We're doing that online.
Oh, I love that. First of all, I adore the idea of having in person, physical space with in person, physical space where people can come in, institution, really bringing this to life as well, the work you're doing. And I think you mentioned so many key things there. First of all, you had to work through your own trauma and heal yourself before you could go and heal others, and you identified that, which I think is so key. Yeah, we can do it during, but it's great to know that we have always got work to do. We want to lead others to walk through that path as well. So I think that was really key that you shared that, and thank you for sharing and doing such amazing work at the moment. And then you've talked about as well, you studying under Amy and learning the business model and finding the business model that works for you. And I always say there's so many business models out there, and it's really important that entrepreneurs find what works for them, their goals, the time they have, their missions, their impact that they want as well. So love that you touched upon that. Now, going on to someone that might be listening to this and saying, okay, what is a happiness expert? You might be able to figure out from the title, what is a happiness expert and where does it start and what do you do?
There's many different ways that you could become a happiness expert. uh, there, but so like for me, my grounding, my initial training was in the context of psychology and more specifically positive psychology, applied positive psychology. So positive psychology is the science of happiness. It's that area of psychology that is focusing on not what's wrong with people, because that's what clinical psychology does. It looks at what's wrong with people and how can we fix what's wrong with you. But positive psychology takes a different approach. It says, oh, let us look at what's right with people. So when people are happy, when people are kind, courageous, generous, and tapping into these other positive aspects of themselves, what allows that to happen, and how can we use that knowledge to help ourselves solve our problems and grow even more and even better, right? And so that is the primary, like at an academic level, that's what I got trained in. And then, of course, me being who I am, I have to bring some of myself into the process as well. And so I'm a very spiritual person. I really believe that we're not just physical or mental, emotional beings, we're also spiritual beings. And so for me, I just combine all of that together. And I just actually love looking and studying the spiritual wisdom of our most effective change makers and learning from them about how to create change in life and in the world. So to combine what positive psychology teaches us about how to create change within ourselves at an individual level, and then also looking at the spiritual teachings of our most effective change makers, like Jesus, like Muhammad, like one of my most amazing heroes as an Indian person is Gandhiji, right? Who was amazingly spiritual, and so on and so forth. The Dalai Lama. I love Dalai Lama. He's so cool.
Yeah.
Our current Pope is actually pretty cool too. So many amazing spiritual leaders who are being so effective at creating massive change in the world. What can we learn from the world? What can we learn from them? So bring all that together.
What an exciting topic and exciting work that you're out there doing. I think we've got Grace on. She said she's excited to hear more about this and loves your expertise as well. We're just getting into the crux of the conversation. So in terms of what I would just love to pick up on there before we go into the topic of love, and I think you're going to lead with us being love, I'm assuming, first, and that transpiring that into the world. Just thinking you're going that way. But what are some of the common themes that you have seen amongst some of the spiritual leaders that you've studied, and in terms of them, obviously, because they are at the essence of that core doing the work that they were here to do, they're ultimately happy. But are there some common themes that you've been able to identify? I'd love for you just to talk.
Actually, there is a whole field of social sciences that studies change making as well. And I actually first tapped and learned about research on the most effective methods of creating social change in that context. And then when I started to look at the spiritual leaders and models that we have, I saw, oh my gosh, what I learned about in the social science research, it's tracking and what I'm seeing in the experience of these amazing spiritual leaders. And so there's actually 3 things that are part of the formula for being a most effective change maker. And a most effective change maker, by the way, is one who creates change with love. They totally, absolutely do. First element of this is actually a commitment to nonviolence. And not just nonviolence, by the way, at a physical level, because there are lots of people who don't get physically violent in the way that they work. For example, you can look at our political system in America. I know in other parts of the world there is more violence that erupts, and my gosh, we have been having some trouble with that in America here recently. But by and large in America, the political system at a physical level, like things don't get very violent, especially when you're looking at like Congress, for example. The actual lawmakers, they won't, start punching each other or shooting each other, things like that. So they're being physically nonviolent. Makers, especially the spiritually oriented ones, are also committed to being mentally and emotionally nonviolent. And so what that means is that you have to actually make a commitment to step away from judgmental thinking patterns. Instead of thinking in terms of what's right and wrong and labeling people as good or bad, or even situations as good or bad, you strive to think from a perspective of non-judgment. So that doesn't mean you're closing your eyes to the realities of life, but what that means is that you look beyond just the black and white, right and wrong perspective, to appreciating the shades of gray, to tapping into your compassion and empathy and seeing, hey, what's going on with people? What's going on with people? What have they experienced? What have they suffered? And what kind of solutions can we find in this situation that not only will help me or my side, but help the other side as well? Just to have that commitment to create win-win solutions by being really, really grounded in this perspective of compassion and love, and being nonviolent at all levels of our experience: physical, mental, emotional, and of course spiritual. So that's the first most important thing.
I love that. And that also you touch upon that it's non-judgmental, not just physical as well. So I think that's really important to take on board. So yes, hit us with number 2 and 3.
Okay, so number 2 is actually where the positive psychology actually comes in, because when you're committed to living nonviolence, practicing non-judgment in your way of making change, you are going to come across lots of challenges, lots of people challenging you, right? And so how do you actually deal with that? How do you actually live out your ideal of being nonviolent and non-judgmental? And so that's where we can look and learn something from positive psychology, because again, remember, positive psychology is a cycle and how we can use that to help ourselves. So one of the most important character traits that we look at in this context is that of how do you create and maintain a very high positive energy. And there's like different things that go into that. So for example, gratitude and appreciation, but also contentment, peace, calm. How do you create and maintain these kinds of different states for yourself? Because there are states of being, and they're impacted by how you think, they're impacted by what you believe, they're impacted by how you act. And so how do you align how you think, feel, and act with ways that actually promote more positive states regardless of circumstances? And that's where actually, from a spiritual perspective, that's the goal that we're striving for, that we're striving to master how we think, feel, and act, so that we can choose to remain peaceful, calm, generous, happy, grateful, regardless of circumstances. Again, think of our amazing spiritual models like the Dalai Lama. For example, he has been exiled. People were literally trying to kill him. His life continues to be under threat, but my gosh, if you have ever heard him speak of, the persecution that he has and his people have been subjected to, that he has and his people have been subjected to, like he's very real about the fact that there's injustice and what the injustice is, but at the same time he speaks with great compassion for even the people of the other side, and he's not just saying it. He really holds that energy of peace and gratitude and so on and so forth, right? And so that's the second key. And there's lots of, when we talk about applied positive psychology, there's lots of tools and tricks and techniques that we learn to implement and apply in our everyday lives to help us create and maintain these kinds of positive states. And of course, if you're like a spiritual person, you have practices in pretty much every spiritual tradition that teach you to cultivate these states, like meditation, like prayer, and really allows you to experience these states. Because I know as someone who has grown up in a religious family, from the time I was born, that just because you are praying in the prescribed way doesn't mean it's translating into you're actually feeling peaceful. Because I know when I was praying growing up, and I was traumatized, having been sexually abused as a child. So I'm like, I'm praying, but I'm not feeling peaceful. What's wrong? Sometimes you can be missing links in our, or not missing something in our practice that doesn't allow us to actually experience that peace that is promised to us by our faith tradition or religious tradition or spiritual tradition. So, you just have to, if you're not feeling that's promised to you through prayer, it's not that prayer doesn't work. It's that you need to pray maybe differently and figure out how you can do it differently so that you can use it to cultivate more peace for you.
And that is just so much gold there, and I totally agree with you in terms of finding your own way. And I had to do that the same. Obviously, I was growing up in church in a way taught and prescribed to pray and stuff. I had to find my own way to find my connection. And as you said, whether it's through prayer and meditation, but you have to tweak and test, and then you will feel the promises of what has been promised. And I shared a post about this week in terms of peace. When you make peace with where you are, peace with, what's to come, peace with every aspect of your life, that's when the abundance and overflow can really start to thrive. It's when you're wrestling in resistance, and that's when it doesn't. So it's such a beautiful topic you just shared on there as well.
Because
topic you just shared on there as well.
Yeah, because our feelings are infectious. They are both the positive ones and the negative ones. And just like you said, Charlotte, at the start, when you were anticipating what I might share, you were right about that you have to be love, you have to be peace, you have to be happiness and gratitude yourself before you can really begin to extend that out in loving, meaningful ways, and at a level that you actually are able to inspire other people to follow your lead, to do the same, and basically infect them with your love, infect them with your positivity, and so forth. And that's actually that sort of like really nicely connects to the third most important aspect of how to create change with love. And well, so you just have been working, on cultivating, all of this positivity around you. And one of the key aspects of, becoming more positive kind of a person is to actually be a very creative kind of a person and to appreciate, wow, like just all the different possibilities of how things are and how they can be, and to be really connected to that part of our imagination, because really that is that kind of creativity that is part of our spiritual essence. You know, I mean, God is creative, right? The divine essence is creative, hence we all exist. Sparks, you know, we reflect the divine nature. We absolutely have, you know, maybe not in the fullness of the divine, but you know, to the extent that, you know, I am a divine spark, I have all of those divine qualities. And so by nature, by my spiritual nature, I'm a creative person. And so to cultivate that creativity is actually a very spiritual practice. And it really helps with the change making, right? Because when you're talking about change making and change making with love, especially around issues that have been entrenched, that people have been struggling with for decades, maybe centuries, maybe for as long as humanity has existed, problems like racism and sexism, my gosh, you can't solve them. Problems like racism and sexism, my gosh, you can't solve them in the same old ways, thinking in the same old ways, right? So you have to get super creative, allow that divine sort of inspiration to come through you, and find innovative solutions, find win-win solutions, and in the context of, if I now point towards a field of academic study that sort of really looks into it, it's the study of social entrepreneurship or social business, where we are seeing a lot of social innovation happening in a business context, people coming up with amazingly creative ideas, and one of the most amazing aspects of the people in this movement are generally, you know, for one reason or another, very committed to this kind of, of thinking where they're trying to be as holistic as they can in the solutions that they propose and that they're trying to implement. So they're not just looking at the problem from a narrow way, but to look at it from a broad way and be like, yeah, we're not going to just do good for ourselves. We're going to do good for others. We're going to do good for the environment. That's mostly true, not always true, but you know, so yeah, that's the third key.
Oh my gosh, I think we could be here for hours, but I'm respectful of your time. But I just want to touch upon something you shared there because it's really close to my heart. And it was really about, glad it was number 3, cultivating time for creativity. So naturally, I think as entrepreneurs, and many of our audience are entrepreneurs, you've chosen to be entrepreneurs. So I say you are creative because you've got to be a problem solver to be an entrepreneur and stay in business. However, I know many would argue in my community, even at points my business partner said, I'm not creative. But so I think it's so important that everyone who is an entrepreneur, there is some allocated time, and it's why I'm a big advocate that you have time to work on your business, not always in it, because with that creativity is where like just the magic happens. I mean, I'm naturally a creative person and love to be able to create things, and sometimes I have to slow my brain down from creating all the time. But I think it's so important that as entrepreneurs, and we've just changed that, we can make time to be creative. And as you said, we're not going to change, particularly many of the people in our audience do want to make impact. We're not going to create change by doing things the same old way. So I love that you shared on that, and maybe something else you want to speak about on that topic, because love it.
Yeah, yeah. And I quickly say that, you know, first of all, there's different forms of creativity. So it's not just about, oh, I'm an artist or singer, or, you know, that kind of a creative. Business people are creative, just like you were saying, Charlotte. Scientists are creative, right? You know, there's so many different expressions of creativity, and we can absolutely, even if you think you're not very creative right now, you can learn to be more creative.
Yes, absolutely. Love all of this. So as we sort of draw to end, I just want to close on one note. as someone that may be sitting here thinking, I'm just one person, I'm just an entrepreneur, I've got a very small business, I'm maybe a solopreneur, it's just me. How can I really go out there and make a change with love? What's the big top tip or takeaway you could leave them with?
Just the number one thing you have to, oh my gosh, the thing that I'm telling you, it's not just because I'm a happiness expert. I swear to you, you can go to the biggest gurus in the world and ask them. Ultimately, the secret to creating change, the creative energy is to be in a high vibration. And especially if you're creating change with love, you want to create positive change, you have to be in a high energy, high vibration. And the states, when you're in the highest vibration, are the states of gratitude, happiness, peace, love, right? So cultivate that in yourself, and everything else honestly begins to fall into place with that. So that is, for me, the first and the most important thing to work on.
Amazing. It's been such a beautiful interview and I loved it. And we always look here, I think Create Initiate, to try and think how we can help business owners holistically. And this is a key component. And as you said, it just transpires into everything. So where can our listeners find you? We'll obviously put all details and links in the show notes, but if you just want to shout out the best place to come and find you, I know you've got your own podcast as well.
Oh, sure. I think the easiest thing to just verbally say out loud that I know you will get is go to my book website. I wrote a book on how to make change fun and easy.
Amazing.
And it's actually called Make Change Fun and Easy. So just go to makechangefunandeasy.com. Just spell it out completely. makechangefunandeasy.com.
I love it. It's simple and to the point. And guys, we will put everything and all the links, because this is one lady you want to be following and soaking up all the tips, because it's just so important for us individually and for the world collectively. We're all connected. So thank you so much for gracing us with your time, your wisdom, your knowledge, expertise. It's been an absolute pleasure, Samia, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to today's podcast episode. Please be kind enough to leave a review and let me know what your biggest takeaway was from today's episode. Also, are there any future discussions and topics that you want to hear delivered by myself? By leaving a review, it will ensure that not only will this podcast rank higher, but more fabulous women like yourself can get to enjoy more of this great content to take away, absorb, and integrate into their lives. So thank you so much in advance for doing so. Love and